Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible. And I cannot wait to share the women I have in my little Zoom room today with you. They are going to help me with that mission. They are some of the authors of a new book that we have coming out called Holistic Mental Health: Calm, Clear, and in Control for the Rest of Your Life. I love that subtitle. Before I introduce them to you, let me say a ginormous thank you to Laura Mazzata. Laura, we would not be here without you and your huge mission for this book. And I know we had a little joke back before we were arranging all this. I said, it's like a small miracle that we had this many people who said yes to being in this book, therapists and coaches, because it's been hard to have our professionals saying yes to really stepping up and being vulnerable about their storytelling and how they have come to be in this place that they are. So thank you for having that amazing community and for attracting these stellar author experts to this book. And I cannot wait. I really can't wait for this book to be out. So with me today is Dr. Summer Sullivan. She's a licensed psychologist and intuitive energy healer who teaches parents and children how to utilize energy healing techniques to transform the chaos in their lives. Teresa La Coraza is the founder of Heal with Teresa, where women learn to heal themselves, empower themselves, and love themselves. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing?
Awesome.
Great. Glad to be here.
I am so excited to get this started. Okay, let's see. Summer, you're going to start the party off. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Okay, so I wrote chapter 18, The Healing Power of Sibling Relationships, Strengthening Bonds by Cutting Cords. And it was interesting in your introduction right now when you talked about how appreciative you were that the author stepped forward to share like a personal story. As a psychologist, we don't necessarily share or disclose our personal stories, although I could see how it is really helpful. So it was actually a big challenge for me. I was like, what am I going to say? How am I going to expose myself? And it was such a healing process to kind of dig deep and see like, where in my life can I show where I have been able to use a holistic mental health strategy that really made transformative, long-lasting changes in my family, and where other people could see, okay, so I'm not just, I guess, repeating what I learned in a textbook. I've really lived this stuff and I really get it. And I think from there, it helps me become more of a, somebody that I can connect better with the parents that I'm working with or the children by showing a little glimpse into my life. So the book, I specifically chose my chapter to write about sibling relationships. And I think it's because when we think about holistic mental health, I'm a family systems therapist. So I look at how any issue in mental health is really related to the system and how we are all interdependent with one another. So when we look at mental health, an area that is not as, I think, just not as addressed as much is that sibling relationship. We look a lot at parent and child relationships, but what about sibling relationships? And the research shows that the quality of a sibling relationship really does factor into adult mental health. So it's a big piece of the puzzle that if we can learn to really strengthen and cultivate healthy sibling relationships, it can be a dramatic protective factor against future mental health issues. And that's where I'm looking at it through a holistic lens. And then I also look at the system of energy and seeing how within families, there's also the energy and the interplay of that. And so that is one of the reasons why I really chose to work on sibling relationships, just because I know how important it is for mental health, but also because in my own family, my big shift from traditional psychotherapy to more of holistic and integrative energy healing came when I had kids and realized some of the things I had learned in grad school weren't cutting it because I wasn't addressing the energy of the sibling relationships. So that's what I do in the book. I share a little bit about the client that I worked with and how using energy healing techniques really helped them as well as in my own family.
Summer, thank you so much for stepping up to share these things. You said it, what I learned in grad school wasn't cutting it.
Mhm.
And your ability to see that there was a more holistic way to do this, I don't know, I think you're a badass. And that's why I'm so grateful, to everyone who stepped up and said, yeah, we'll share with the world what needs to happen
Mhm.
and why it's important, so I get, oh man, I'm excited about this book. Okay, so you said something about the sibling thing, and of course that's the theme of your chapter, and I love it so much. I have a younger sister. I also have two children, a boy and a girl, and so I think about siblings for lots of different reasons, because I have them and have one, and my kids too. But I don't know that I ever really thought about the importance of it until I read your chapter. It's like, oh, it is what it is over here. I can't really do much about if they get along or what happens in their world. Talk to me more about that.
Yes. And I think one of the things I see a lot is parents that are really frustrated because they feel like they're either playing referee, um,
Totally.
or they have this guilt that they're holding on to, like, what's wrong with my kids? Why don't my kids get along? And really, I see it all the time. Just because you have a brother or sister doesn't necessarily mean one, you're going to have the chemistry or the personality to get along. It's really the parent's job to cultivate that. But how do you cultivate that if one, they do have different personalities, but also like the energy. I work a lot with just like understanding the rhythms of different kids. Like you have these children that live together all day long, and we expect them to get along, but they have different desires, different ways of communicating, different conflict resolution, different personalities, and then energetically, what's going on? How are they expressing their emotions, which is a form of energy? I also love looking at past lives, which they don't get into in this book too much, but I see that sometimes too. Sometimes siblings come in and they have a whole nother story that we haven't even been able to address or that we're not aware of. So it's a really big task for parents, but it is doable. And so I guess what I see is that all day long, the reason why sibling relationships can be so intense is there's just so many opportunities also for conflict. You have to share with your sibling. You have to get along with them. You have to be empathic with them after a long day of being, stressed out at school. There's all these expectations. And maybe there is a desire and underneath it all, a connection, but it's a lot that we put on these siblings, and these kids don't yet have the tools. They don't have the tools for the conflict resolution. And then what happens is it builds. Like maybe, okay, you get over a little fight you had on a Tuesday, but then, you keep having the same fight, the same little things keep happening. And by Friday, you start to really resent your sibling. And then that feels really uncomfortable. Maybe you feel guilty about that. So I want to give kids the tools to clear those relationships, and also parents those tools, because when we have healthy sibling relationships, everyone knows, right? That bond, there's nothing like it. We also see in the research, it really is a protective factor. So it really does support emotional well-being and mental health, but also it's just that thing of having a partner that you go through life with, sharing your story with. So I want to preserve that. I feel that sibling relationships are sacred, but I think it's hard, especially parents, even well-meaning parents that have all the tools. If you're just working on communication, working on, how to fight better, or that you have to share and take turns, we're missing this piece. What connects us is energy, right? So what connects two people, there's these pathways of energy that goes between us. And it gets backed up with every little fight, every little transgression that happens. So we need to clear those energy connections so that we can get back to basics and really create an environment for a sacred bond to grow.
Awesome. That's a lot, right, you guys? Okay, stay tuned. We're going to hear more from Summer in a minute or two. Summer, thank you so much for being here today. Teresa, how about you? Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Hi. So I am chapter 4, and the title of my chapter is Embodying Gratitude: How to Reduce Anxiety in Any Situation. And I loved writing this chapter. It was really an experience for me, and I was so happy when Laura reached out to me. She's like, hey, would you be open to an opportunity? I was like, okay, sure. So when she reached out to me, I had just got diagnosed with breast cancer, and there's no history in my family. So it was really like, breast cancer, what do you mean? And working with women for so many years, they come to me when they need help, when they're at their lowest point, usually. I work with things like EFT and visualization and just switching your thoughts, right? Because life is a mind game, teaching people how to switch their thoughts. So I end up with breast cancer, and I just felt like it was God's way of saying to me, all these years that you've been teaching what you teach, that you could choose in any moment how to feel and how to react. Now it's time to put your money where your mouth is. So now all these things that you've been teaching for all these years, you need to really use the tools that you have, that you've been teaching, to help you get through this and navigate your way through this without completely falling apart. So I made the decision that I was going to use gratitude to get me through every day. It was scary. I found out 10 hours before I got on a plane to go see my in-laws in Las Vegas. And I said to my husband, I was like, I can't go. And he's like, it's up to you. We were taking my kids out there. I have 2 college-age boys. We were taking them out there. They haven't seen their cousins because of COVID in a long time. So I was like, I can't go. I was like, well, you go and take the boys. He's like, no, we're all going, or none of us are going. It's okay. We understand. And I had to work through all of this. And I said, okay, I'm going to choose to be grateful for the things that I have. Okay. My kids are healthy. My husband's healthy. I'm getting to spend time with my family. And that was important, instead of, oh my God, I have breast cancer. Oh my God, what is going to be the next few steps? Because we hadn't made a plan yet with my doctors. At that point, I hadn't gone for a second opinion yet. Let me see how this goes. And I really think, and I've seen it happen by using something as simple as gratitude. And that's the practice that I teach in my chapter, how to use gratitude. It's not just saying, it's not just words, it's a feeling. And when you feel and you draw in all of your senses, it's that much more powerful. So in my chapter, I also discuss having a partial mastectomy and 8 days later, my house flooding and being destroyed. So it wasn't just, okay, you have to deal with breast cancer. Now you have to deal with your house being destroyed. And when that happened, and I'm looking at the water rising in my house, there was absolutely nothing anybody could do. I'm like, this really sucks. And how do I find gratitude in this? And there were days that were difficult and times that were difficult. And I learned firsthand now that, people say, oh, just take one day at a time. I couldn't take one day at a time on some days. I had to take one moment at a time. And I learned to give myself grace, and that was okay. And I just feel that it's really important for people to understand, because it's so true. In every minute when you're feeling sorry for yourself, or you're arguing with someone, or things aren't going the way you think, you could stop. And there are times that I say out loud, stop. This is not working for me. I'm going to choose to be grateful. I'm going to choose to look at something better, as opposed to, something that brings you down. Now, it's also important to, and I say this, to feel the feels. I had to feel scared. I had to feel anxious. But I knew enough not to stay in those energies for a long time. And that's something that I've been teaching for years. When I, here in town, I've been teaching different meditations and mindfulness practices to the senior citizens. Some of them have lost their spouses. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel that, but just don't stay there. I could have lived in anxiety, because I was very anxious, and I've been dealing with anxiety for most of my life. I could have stayed there, but I chose not to. I chose to enjoy my kids. I did, in fact, go to Las Vegas, and we had a great time. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law were amazing. They knew that I had just gotten the diagnosis. They let me be. They let me cry. They let me laugh. They let me be alone. So it's knowing what you need, allowing yourself to feel the feelings. And when they're not when they're the lower lying energies, recognizing that and going in and saying, okay, what is it that I feel and why am I feeling it? So, okay, for me, some days it was, okay, I'm feeling really scared. Why? Well, I'm about to have a partial mastectomy. I'm scared about the surgery. I'm scared about the recouping. I ended up having radiation. Well, I'm scared for the first time that I walked in. With my house, I was scared. I was like, what's going to happen with my house? It was destroyed. Thank goodness we had electricity somehow. I don't know how. We had electricity, so we were able to live in the house. And when I felt bad and angry and frustrated, I was like, okay, time out. Take a deep breath and let me pull in that feeling of gratitude, because gratitude is so amazing and so powerful. And I really feel that writing this book, and then when I got sent it in, I got the first set of edits back, I cried. I cried as I was reading it, and I was texting my friend. I'm like, why am I crying? I'm like, I know what happens. I know I get cancer. I know I have surgery. I know I survive, and I know my house gets fixed. Why am I crying? And it was just, again, dealing with all those emotions that I lived through in a way that was just so surreal in some respects. And yet, because of that, I feel that I'm stronger as a holistic healer. It really made a huge shift. And people think I'm crazy. I'm so grateful that I had cancer because I learned so much. I learned an incredible amount about myself, about other people, and about what I can handle. So it was really, I'm beyond grateful for the opportunity. And I've met so many amazing people, the other authors and you, and it's just been amazing.
Well, so thanks to both of you for, not just saying yes to this, but then stepping up and giving us those vulnerable stories. And then you guys, your master tools that you are sharing, your teachings are powerful. You've heard now from Summer and Teresa about some of the things they're going to be talking about in their chapters. And Teresa made me think of, it's said that the energies of fear and gratitude cannot exist at the same time. So if you're moving toward gratitude, you are going to shift what's inside of you, which also shifts you physically at a cellular level. It's energy, it's all energy. And with awareness, we get a choice, which is something I love to talk about that all day long. Teresa, I'm going to stay with you in this segue. You made it so easy for me because you said the word holistic. The next thing I want to hear about from both of you is, why is it important that we use a holistic approach when it comes to mental health? Both have already been talking about that a little bit, but let's continue.
I feel that there is a place for medicine in mental health. But I really feel, and I think the two sides, the two worlds are starting to come together to see that there is a way to handle anxiety and stress without always going for some kind of medication. And yes, sometimes it's definitely needed. I'm not discounting that. But little simple things, learning to do some deep breathing, learning to do visualizations, EFT tapping. I love that. That's my go-to tool that I use not only with myself, but with my clients. So I think when we look at the holistic arena, there are so many things that maybe have been discredited in the past, but are now being seen more and being used more. And they're seeing how there are really positive results. There's been several studies done just on meditation. I think it was Yale or Harvard did a study where they took they took brain scans before and after the study. 30 people meditated for 30 minutes a day for 30 days. And the gray matter in their brain grew after that 30 days, which is so amazing. So they have physical proof right there. So I think medicine is starting to catch up with that. And I think that's a really important place to start, to see if you could work through the mental health issues. You know, since COVID, you know, suicides have gone up, the rate of depression and anxiety has gone up. So we really need to address this in a way. And let's start with the holistic ways. Let's start with the meditation, the therapy, the EFT, the NLP, all these different things, these different tools that we now have studies that show they really do work. So why not start there and try and, you know, and because medicine doesn't get to the root of the problem. If we could sugarcoat anything, we could blanket anything, but once we know the root or cause of an issue, then we can take the approach on how to heal it, because we have to heal it.
Yeah, why not, right?
Mhm.
I'm with you there. How about you, Summer, when you think about, you know, putting the word holistic in front of mental health, like why is this approach important in your opinion?
So, like I mentioned before, I'm really big at understanding systems because we do not exist in a vacuum. When I think of holistic, I think of zooming out. Where psychology, I love understanding the mind, understanding why we act the way that we do. And, you know, we exist within our mind. And I think we really all need to become experts as well in the psychology of our mind. And I would love that to be, you know, infused in this school, but understanding that we are also energy. So when I zoom in, I might look at, you know, a certain thought pattern. If I zoom out, what's holding that certain thought pattern in place? Is there some sort of energetic component? Is it systemic? Is it because of the society that we're in, the family that we're in? So, you know, maybe it's a nutritional deficiency, right? Maybe it's something with their vagus nerve, where, you know, the research now shows that if our vagus nerve has been damaged because of a lot of anxiety and stress, it can lead to overthinking. So really doing the zoom in, zoom out until we really figure out the big picture. And that's when I think of holistic mental health. I want to really look at it from all angles. As far as specifically what I talk about in the book is the power of using the mind, similar with gratitude. Gratitude is using the power of the mind and activating the energy of gratitude. In my chapter, we're using the power of mind, activating forgiveness, activating, sorry, I love saying that word weird, activating awareness to be able to free ourselves, release ourselves from the tension, from the resentment. So using our mind and directing it to move energy, it's very a holistic approach. But it's also very empowering to see that there's more that we can do, but it's all connected, right? If we're stuck in a certain belief system, we're stuck seeing our children in a certain way, we're stuck interacting with somebody where we can't get over something they said to us, there's usually something else at play. And that's where I like to zoom out and see if that is energetic. And just in my own practice, I mean, I've been on this amazing journey, starting in traditional psychotherapy, then with my own children, really diving into energy healing, and now I've been able to integrate it. And the effects are transformative, long lasting. I mean, there's sometimes when someone doesn't need to keep coming, talking to me about the same thing over and over again, because we cleared the energy behind why they were stuck on that. So it's just a beautiful, I think, way of I love that we're bringing awareness, right? We're bringing awareness and saying there's more that we can do. And throughout the book, it's a beautiful tool to zoom out, and 25 different tools were given in this chapter. So if you zoom out and say, what else could be going on here? Looking at through the lens of, does this person need more gratitude? Does this person, you know, need more meditation, nutrition? It's a beautiful way of really bringing that knowledge to everyone who reads the book.
Yes, that, you know, authentic healing is transformative and long lasting.
Mhm.
And so I love those words that you just used about the holistic approach creates authentic healing, which is then it transforms you, it lasts, it's not putting a band-aid on things. And yeah, so that is why I think this is just such a game-changing, life-changing topic. And I appreciate both of you for getting into this conversation. Summer, I'm going to stick with you for a minute and keep this going with kind of just a little bit more personal question. You know, feeling is healing to me. So we are in a process of helping people to feel in all the ways, notice their thoughts, notice their feelings in their body, notice what it is going on in there, right? So I was wondering if you would share a little bit about your personal awareness practice. What does that look like for you in the day-to-day?
I love that you put me on the spot like that because I tell you, I feel uncomfortable sometimes because I'm not used to talking about myself, but I do recognize that I think people I work with want to hear more about. Am I using these tools? I mean, I get a lot of people say, you always seem so happy and so positive. And I'm like, oh, I think it's because I allow myself to feel all my feelings. I give space to all my feelings. There is space inside me that I can feel all of my feelings. I also love EFT, emotional freedom technique, and tapping. I love it so much because it is that exposure to all our different feelings, but it also gives space. We're saying we value all of these feelings. However, we also recognize that the lifespan of a feeling is what, 60 to 90 seconds inside your body. We're not, intended to hold on to these difficult, heavier, dense emotions all the time. We're supposed to feel them, get the information from them, and let them go. So that is what I do. I talk to my feelings. I have a little one-on-one, say, hey, what's this? Why is this showing up for me? What is the information in this moment that this feeling is trying to tell me? Is it that I need more sleep? Is I need to be more kind and forgiving to myself or others? Like I really try to extract what is the message here. And then I try to do either some deep breathing or some tapping to then release the emotion from my body and kind of go back to zero. That is kind of my goal. And I'm doing it all the time. I'm checking in with myself all day long, being like, okay, like what's going on? Why am I feeling grumpy? Why am I holding on to this? What's going on? Listening to the messages that my feelings are communicating to me and then doing something about them. So I would say my personal practice would be definitely using deep breathing and tapping. And just also honoring every single one of my feelings because it's information. I'm not looking at as good or bad. I'm just saying, okay, like, hey, like, well, what's this trying to tell me? And, how can I use this information to move towards balance, harmony, neutrality, whatever it is that I'm trying to achieve.
I want to rewind you for a second to what you skimmed it really fast, and I wanted to slow you down, but I didn't want to interrupt you. You said something about how a feeling is really only supposed to be like a 60 to 90 second thing that flows through us. And right, could you what do you mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to butcher it completely, but there's we have a thought in our mind and there's a peptide chain that creates a feeling, right? So energy comes in through our body and then it filters through our mind, whether or not that energy is going to be sadness, anger, frustration, and it gives us information on how we feel about a certain situation. And so our soul is also always talking to us. If something doesn't feel good, probably not in alignment with your soul. And this amazing information that we're receiving at any moment of the day. And if we use it as information versus creating a story about it and then trapping it, and then we all of a sudden don't have clarity anymore about the situation because then we're in our feelings. Like, yes, it's wonderful to be in our feelings, but when we're so in our feelings that they kind of take over and we don't have access anymore to that intuition or that clarity, that can be difficult about like, okay, what can I do about this? So recognizing that there is a lifespan for an emotion because the emotion is supposed to give you information, right? If I tell a story then to myself about like, why does this always keep happening to me? Right? Then I'm going to be creating another peptide chain and then, giving almost like energy and feeding that emotion so that it's going to grow to the point where then it's going to be a lot more difficult to heal or deal with that emotion. So I like to kind of check myself throughout the day. And I also say, okay, I've been feeling like annoyed for like 30 minutes. What's going on? Why did I trap myself there? What's going
Oh,
on that has
no,
kept me stuck there? It's my responsibility to be like, check
yeah.
myself, you know?
And never mind 30 minutes. What about those of us who stuck for days or right? So I wanted to slow you down there to have our listeners really understand. And you said it a minute ago, there is a lifespan for an emotion. And so when we start to add and make it heavier and make it stickier,
Mhm.
then it's hours, it's days, it's weeks, it's months. And I want to move on here to the next thing, but I wanted people really, when I hear you guys talk about a golden nugget, I call them the ninja moves of awareness. Like when we know this stuff, then we can take everything to the next level. And it's life-changing stuff. So I love that. There's a lifespan to emotions, good, bad, and ugly, and awesome.
And their
Right?
information, and they're all helpful because they're letting you know something really important. But once we get that information, then we have the choice. And I heard you say that before too. And I love that too. Like we totally have the choice. Do I want to stay in this emotion? And maybe sometimes I do want to feel, annoyed for a while or sad, but it's still my choice versus, I'm getting trapped in. Or do I want to extend gratitude to that emotion, do some sort of mind body techniques to let it go and move forward? And I think that really empowers us because we are in the driver's seat. Our emotions do not control us, except for we were saying like energy. If we focus so much on the energy or an emotion, any energy that's concentrated, right, becomes like a substance. And then all of a sudden, this little emotion like this, you were a little bit irritated by something, but then you focused on it and it grew and grew. And now it feels like this substance inside us and becomes really dense. And then there's not space for other things because this emotion takes up, it expands within us. So kind of about recognizing too, like, wait, if I go back to that moment when that thing triggered me, how big was my emotion at that point? With kids, I do a lot of this. Like, how big was it when it first happened? Okay, so can we get back to here and ask what was the purpose of this emotion? And then can we set it free and move on?
Yeah, nice. I love it. And
love
thanks
that.
for explaining all of that. Okay, Teresa, I want to give you a chance to give us a little window into your awareness practices. What's it like for you? What do you do?
Well, I love everything that was just said because yes, if we, they say what you focus on expands, right? So again, we have that choice. Do we focus on what triggered us? Because if we do, then it expands. My go-to when I'm feeling not in alignment is definitely EFT, emotional freedom technique, the tapping. Tapping will eliminate physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain almost immediately. And as it's doing that, it will bring up whatever it is that needs to be healed. So that's really my go-to. Another thing that I do, because if you're out and about in, walking in a store, in an airport, on a plane, driving in the car, you may not be able to sit there and start tapping. So I've learned to anchor power words. And this is something that I also teach. It's a lot of fun, power words, coming up with a power word, putting yourself in a situation that would cause anxiety or anger and coming up with a power word and then just repeating that word over and over again, because it will immediately shift your energy. It'll tell your mind, oh, I'm supposed to feel grateful at this time, or I'm supposed to feel happy at this time. And it will eliminate or help you move towards feeling more peaceful. And yes, when I do feel angry, upset, or anxious, I'm like, okay, why am I feeling that? And always checking in with myself saying, why am I experiencing this emotion, this feeling? Why am I feeling anxious? Why am I feeling angry? Why am I feeling nervous? What is it? And taking a look at the bigger picture. Okay, so I'm nervous. My son just left for college. So I was nervous about that, and I'm like, okay, you have to make sure you check in with me. And then I have to check in with myself and be like, he's almost 20 years old. Like I have to I have to let it go a little bit, or something, even something you have an argument with a family member, your spouse, your children, and they trigger you. Okay, why am I triggered about this? Okay, let me take a step back. Or I'm sad about something. You have to sit there and be like, okay, why do I feel sad? Check in. And then there are so many different tools that we can use when we step away from it. And I do some of that too. That's another tool that I use, putting up, visualizing, a screen of, a movie screen, and playing it out on the movie screen, or putting a thick piece of a window in between you and your emotion. So it protects you from, that the emotion can't take hold of you anymore, but looking at it and analyzing it and saying, okay, where is it coming from? And always knowing that you're safe because you have a choice. Okay, let's look at this. Let's see what it is. And I use that a lot, and it becomes very routine. When you first start using these tools, it takes time. You have to think your way through them. Okay, so now I have to do this, or I should do this, or, am I doing this technique in the correct way? But it's just like going to the gym and building your muscles. You're not going to step into a gym after 20 years and the next day go compete in a bodybuilding contest. You need to, that's the same thing with any of these practices that are being taught in the book. It takes a little time, it takes the effort in the beginning. And step one is always making the commitment. So when you practice it, it gets easier, and you learn to identify your feelings much more quickly when you practice this. There may be times where people will be angry and they'll walk around angry for hours and not even realize it, because they're always so used to being angry. Well, the more you use these tools to identify why you're feeling that way, you'll notice that you're angry, or somebody triggered you, or something triggered you before, so you can heal it more quickly, so you don't live in that space of anger or resentment or fear or anxiety, whatever it is, for too long of a period of time. So that's kind of where I am with it. Words are very, very, very powerful. And I've learned to anchor and choose words that are more empowering to me when I'm feeling anxious or scared, especially if I'm, out in public. I don't love to fly, but when I'm in an airport, I'm like, oh, and I feel the anxiety. I have my trigger words to calm me down, to know that I'm safe, to know that, everything is in divine timing, and I'm in exactly where I'm supposed to be. So that's just a little bit of it. I get very anxious in airports, so but I fly.
I think there's probably a couple people who are like, yes, I will need my trigger words. Thank you very much. I love that.
And standing in the middle of, waiting on the TSA line, I'm not going to be standing there and tapping. So, there's
I use the karate chop for that, you guys. I do it down low. No one can see I'm doing it. I do my karate chop.
I'm unapologetically tapping all the time.
Like, what is that girl doing?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, in light of knowing your surroundings, being aware of your surroundings, something I tell my kids all the time, you have to be aware of your surroundings at all times. You may not want to, start tapping. So having, empowerment words and knowing that they will immediately shift your energy, which is so important, because we're all balls of energy encapsulated in this physical thing that we call a body. So we have to address that. And without addressing it, you can't get to the root of the problem. So becoming aware and acknowledging whatever we're feeling, emotion we're feeling, then we can find out why we feel that way. And sometimes we're like, well, you know what? I just didn't get enough sleep last night. That's why I'm annoyed that this person said this to me or did this to me. I wouldn't be as annoyed if maybe I got more sleep last night, or didn't have too much sugar or whatever it is. So being aware and having that capability of identifying things, that is really where we start. That's where I start. And then I choose what I want to do. But tapping is my go-to all the time, along with feeling gratitude, because I could immediately say, okay, what am I grateful for? And find something and bring up the feeling. So that's kind of what and that was kind of all over the place, but that's really what my
Thank
practice
you.
looks like.
Thank you
I
for
love
sharing.
the
Yeah.
power words and the gratitude and the tapping, because it all is all connected, because we know that certain words have different vibrations, right? They've been
Yes.
able to measure no versus yes. And just the word thank you, just saying thank you actually can shift the vibration inside your body. So the power words, you are like, I think it's such a great simple tool to empower people, like to pick a power word that when they say it, they notice that shift. But then if they can also learn to tap and anchor that power word through tapping, then they're going to be unstoppable. So I love that combination. It's really,
And what I love it too. And what I have found is it's a little bit of NLP, neuro linguistic programming. When you find a word that you could associate with a positive feeling, like a feeling of gratitude, and then doing something physical to connect it with the word, then sometimes you just need to think the word, and it could be a tug of the ear, right? Because that doesn't look as crazy as maybe walking around but you could walk through the airport or the supermarket or as you're driving and think your word or say it out loud and say tug on your ear as you do it, which really anchors it even more. So that's another great tool, something else that I teach it, because it really does, you can physically feel the shift in your body when you do these things.
All right, ladies, y'all can tell that we have master teachers in the house. You're all going to learn so much, and there is so much to learn. So remember, this is the journey, right? Teresa, Summer, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
I'm really excited to share this book with you all, but I know maybe just even today, something they said is making you curious or giving you the goosebumps, or so scroll on down to the show notes, because I have these ladies' websites hooked up for you. Take a little exploration, see all of the awesomeness they are up to in the world, because they're very generously there to continue to help you, answer a question, give you some support, talk to you more about tapping, whatever it is, right? And whatever you're curious about. And of course, you're all invited to our live stream book launch party for holistic mental health. And I just got to say it again: calm, clear, and in control for the rest of your life, right? That's how passionate and powerful we are about this topic. Come and join us for that on October 7th, 22. That's 10 a.m. Eastern on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. I'm going to have all of our co-authors and our lead author, Laura Mazzata, there to celebrate and share their wisdom and inspiration with you. And if you happen to be listening to this after that date, well, get on over to Amazon, because that means the book is ready and you can get your copy. And lastly, today, everyone, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.